Let's take a look at how the bracket played out in 2019, which, Wayne, this was a pretty spectacular year and bracket for a lot of reasons, right?
Oh yeah, they were really big stories heading the tournament. And from media perspective, fan perspective, just a lot of hype and attention around Duke. Always a big brand name in college basketball, but especially in 2019, Duke was 29-5, number one overall seed, and of course had Zion Williamson, just a freshman, was the biggest name and force we've seen in probably the last 10 years of college basketball. So much so that in our bracket challenge game, 39% of all complete brackets had Duke winning.
How does that compare to most years?
Yes, we've been tracking for 10 years now. The only time we had a more popular pick was Kentucky in 2015, and that team was undefeated. So a couple more storylines before we go further. Virginia was number one overall seed as well, North Carolina and Gonzaga.
So just a stacked bracket, it seems.
Yeah, and Virginia, of course, was famously coming off the first ever 16-1 upset the year before. But then in 2019, of course, Virginia wins the title Minneapolis, just a great redemption story. And for us in the bracket, we see perfect brackets lasting longer than we've ever checked before, 49 games in a row to start.
Okay, so that's kind of crazy. Let's dig into the bracket and how we landed on someone picking 49 straight.
Yeah, so day one was pretty remarkable in terms of chalk, which kind of helps create more perfect brackets remaining. We had 60,000 perfect brackets left after day one, and we started with over 20 million, so still quite a few left.
Why so many this year?
Yeah, there just weren't as many upsets that we've seen in most years, especially in the last few years with 15s and 16s winning. The biggest upset by seed was 113 seed UC Irvine, and there were 312 upsets. Most famously, Murray State beating Marquette with John Morant, who had a triple double that day. 45% picked Murray State to win, which tells you how popular they were. Put it all together, we still have 15 perfect brackets left after 2 days.
All right, so we're at Saturday now, the second round, 15 remain, like you just said. What happens from there?
Yeah, so with those 15 and 8 games kind of considered coin flips more about, you think that would be it and all brackets would bust, but no, somehow still two brackets made it through.
Okay, almost there. So let's go through the very last perfect bracket.
Yeah, so on Sunday, both brackets were exactly the same until Texas Tech Buffalo, which was the 44th game of the tournament. But the Red Raiders won that one, which left us with just Center Road and Greg Nigel as our last perfect bracket. And he was in our NCAA March Madness Bracket Challenge game.
We're going to have a lot more on Greg Nigel later.
Yeah, and he remains perfect through the first 4 days, which we've never seen before. The longest perfect bracket before his was 39 in a row. So because that becomes somewhat of a national story, a little mini celebrity, people create fake social media accounts with his name. He gets invited to the Sweet 16, and he keeps on going until game 50 with Tennessee versus Purdue. And he almost got that one right as Tennessee lost in overtime.